Hey guys, how you doing? This is Benjamin with Benjamin Exotics, and in this video today, we're going to be looking at and talking about a few different techniques that I've used with great success of how to get your ball python to start feeding. Now, for most of you guys that are out there that are just getting, a new baby ball python, you shouldn't have too many problems with feeding, but I'd say maybe 10 or 5% of the time, very small percentage, but you do sometimes have feeding problems with baby ball pythons. But as long as your humidity and heating, not as much humidity, but heating, caging, everything is right, you shouldn't have too many problems. And these techniques can be applied to snakes all the way from 1 month old, 1 week old, to a year old. So these are some techniques that I've used with great success and that hopefully you guys will benefit from. Now there's actually a good amount of them, so I normally don't ever have a script in the video, but I'm actually going to have it in this one. I know most of these, but I just don't want to leave anything out for you guys, so I don't want any of you guys to be like, oh, he's getting, lazy, he's got a script. No, it's because I want to make sure you guys get all the information possible to have your snakes feed the best that they can for you. Very simple. So, first thing is covering the tank. As you guys know, I already do this with probably about 80% of the snakes I keep, and you can do this really two ways in my opinion. The first way, and I guess the simplest way, is just to cover 3 sides. And all this is doing is the main 99% of the time, the reason your snake isn't feeding, if we assume that all the care is right, heat, and the right size of cage, if all of the actual husbandry is right, the thing that is normally the problem is your snake feels exposed, okay? If your ball python thinks you can see it while it's eating, it's not going to want to eat. So there's really 2 ways to do this paper thing. One is to cover both sides right here and then the side on the back, or to cover the entire thing. And I know this isn't the actual size of like a 10-gallon, but this is just a little representation of like a 5-gallon. So personally, the way I would do it, especially if your snake's having problems feeding, is to cover all the sides so they don't feel exposed at all. But if you want to still be able to see your snake, of course, after you let them go for a little while, you can either, the best way to do it to make it look like a vivarium would probably be to stick some sort of background on these sides and then this side and just leave the bigger side open. But you guys can do it however you want. Just make sure that the snake's cage is covered and that it feels secured. Another way you could do it is to get something like not a see-through tub like this, but a covered tub if you don't want to have to, use paper, because I don't really think they have, dark colored glass. Glass is always see-through. Another thing you can do or look at is change the size of the tank. This is probably another huge one, okay? Some snakes like bigger tanks to eat in. Some snakes like smaller tanks. And some snakes, you just change the tank up, even if it's the exact same size. I've literally had it before. Snake sits in one tank, doesn't want to feed. You switch it to another one, it feeds the next day. I don't know why this is true. My theory is maybe because in Africa, when they're in their little holes and stuff, they know that once they, poop too much in it, that it compromises that hole and, rodents can pick up on that scent. I really don't know why this is true, but lots of the time, if you just change their cage, even if it's just the same exact size or a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, they'll normally go back onto food. Another thing, and this is a big thing people don't think about lots of times, is don't touch the rodents with your hands. Now, if it's a normal, feeder, their feeding response is going to be pretty good, so you don't have to worry about it, but especially for picky feeders like this girl right here, we don't want to be touching the rodents with our hands, because if you take that rodent and you rub your hands all over it and are trying to dry it off and stuff, when it smells that rodent, it's going to pick up 2 scents. It's going to pick up one scent, which is feeding, and then the other scent's going to be yours. And depending on how they associate, you with that scent, it's either they think they're going to be held, or they think that if you're a threat, you're a threat and they're not going to want to eat. So don't touch the rodents with your hands. Make sure the rodents smell as much as like a rodent as possible, not like a, human. Oh my gosh, this is another huge one that I see all the time. Scruff, not zombie. Now that doesn't make very much sense at first, but when you're taking the rodents, the rats, mice, whatever you're feeding, with your tongs, especially for problem feeders, do not, if they're frozen thawed at least, grab them by the tail and dangle them in front of the snake. That's not natural for them, okay? If they have a good feeding response, normally they're just going to come up and grab it, but for a timid eater, that's just going to freak them out. They're like, what is this? Is it a bird? It's flying? What's going on? You want to take the rat, here's the head, here's the body. I should actually have an example, but I'm not going to pull it out right now. Head, body, take it right behind the scruff on the neck and use it like that and make the rat look like it's alive. You want to stimulate what happens in the wild as closely as possible. Don't be, having a flying rat going around. You're just going to freak the snake out. Add hides. We've got, not even hides, just something besides the outside that's going to make your snake feel even more secure. So, logs like this. You can take pots, like I do, and just melt them, plastic pots you can get from the dollar store, melt them in half, use that as a hide, go out, get some plants. Just make sure your snake really feels secure in its cage. Don't change the bedding before you feed them. Let them get used to their scent. I actually did an entire video on this subject, I think a week or so ago, maybe a few days ago, probably 5 days or so, but you don't want to be changing the bedding all the time when they're not feeding. Let them, be in their cage, get used to their own smell, get used to their environments. Don't be always ripping them in and out of their cage or cleaning stuff. Even if they poop, if it's really bad, then of course you got to clean it, but if they just go to the bathroom, it's a little bit in a corner, leave it while you feed them. That extra scent of theirs is going to help them feel more secure when feeding. Okay, so don't be changing their cages out too much. Also, you want to try, one of the also huge things is different foods. So if you're just trying rats, try a mouse. You have to be careful because there are some things that are kind of addictive to snakes, like African soft furs and stuff, where they're going to never want to eat anything besides that ever again. And you just have to take that into consideration. But if you have an availability of African soft fur rats, you could try those. I've even heard of people trying baby chickens, yes. I actually have a friend that he feeds his males like 50% baby chickens. I don't know how healthy that actually is for the snake, but it is something you could consider and, try. Live versus frozen. This is pretty obvious as well. If you're insisting on frozen, try live, okay? Even though it's the same scent, and if they're warm, it's the same everything basically. Sometimes just that little extra live movement without you having your hand reaching in there with your tongs, freaking them out, is going to be just what you need to kick them back into feeding normally. Decrease offering schedule and holding schedule. So, very simple. Don't be feeding them once a week. Bump it to 2 weeks. And don't hold them at all. If they are doing good, and if there's no emergency to clean out their cage, don't hold them at all. Once your snake is feeding and doing good for you, that is when you can go ahead, like I'm doing with this girl, and hold them. Especially babies. You don't want to keep stressing them out. You want them to get used to their home, get balled up in a very safe position for a week or so. Then when you feed them and they feel secure, they should take. And then there's a few other things you can try. Always feed the right size. We already talked about decreasing your holding. And then if you've done all this stuff and you really can't get them to take in a more natural way, the only really option you have left is to assist feed. And everybody has heard this before, but it really is the truth. I wouldn't force feed. I've never force fed a snake. I've never even assist fed any of my ball pythons. I've assist fed other snakes, but none of my ball pythons I currently have. I'm not saying I won't. Of course, if I need to, I can, and I do know how to, but it's just not something that I've had to do. Assist feeding is the best way to go because you're teaching that snake that it's time to eat, okay? You're kicking in those scents. Even people, if you talk to frog breeders and stuff like that, okay? People, talk about, sometimes people have to assist feed frogs or leopard geckos just to give them that first heads up so their brain is just freaking out and they're in scared mode all the time. And all it sometimes takes is just 1 or 2 assist feeds for them to, get that food into their system and their body kicks in and says, oh, it looks like it's time to eat. And then they'll just feed for you, great for the rest of their life, okay? So these are a few tips of mine. Nothing too complicated, but hopefully you guys can take away from this. The main things I would say is you just got to cover them, make sure they're, feeling secure, have the proper husbandry, and try different rodents. All these other tips can work and have worked for me very good over, my reptile keeping experience, and hopefully they will work for you guys. So, if you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, and of course, if you like the channel, please consider subscribing. We upload just about every day, trying to give you guys the best possible care for your pet ball python. So, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.